It's the highest profile unsolved case in the nation. It's been the subject of many theories and investigations, none of which have resulted in a successful arrest. On December 26, 1996, 6-year-old JonBenét Ramsey was found dead in her family's home in Boulder, Colorado. Her parents, John and Patsy Ramsey, had reported her missing early that morning. Patsy Ramsey found a lengthy, handwritten ransom note in the house addressed to her husband, John. About 7 hours after police arrived to investigate the kidnapping, JonBenét's body was found hidden behind a latched door in the basement of the home. And now, a convicted pedophile has written incriminating letters. His name is Oliva. Tonight, we will take a look at those letters and the original ransom note with our experts to see if the handwriting is a match. Plus, we'll speak live with the man who received those letters from Oliva as we investigate the unsolved murder of JonBenét Ramsey. I'm Vinny Politan. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Get ready. This hour, we're going to take a look at some information, some evidence, and try to see if there's anything that gets us closer to an answer in the JonBenét Ramsey case. And, you know, this is an unsolved case, and it's one of those murders where everyone has a theory, right? A lot of people have theories and have thrown them out through the years, from DAs to investigators to podcasters to people producing specials on TV. So many have taken a look at the evidence that's been made public and revealed. And so many have gone in different directions with all of it. They have. I mean, even within law enforcement, there were like two schools of thought on what happened to this little girl. Now, like I said, everyone has theories, and there have been some relatively recent, and I say relatively recent, this is a very old case, but relatively recent television programs that have taken a look at it. And in one particular case, at the end of the program, it seemed like there was a conclusion by the experts who looked at this that it was someone within the family. That resulted in a defamation case, which, trust me, was not won by the network that produced the show. There was a settlement in that case. That didn't necessarily resolve anything, but that's the way this case has gone, right? People have been very passionate about their views, and John Ramsey and the family from the beginning said, no, it's not us. It's not us. But there was a lot of focus on the family from the beginning. And that may have thrown this whole thing off the tracks a little bit because we still don't have an answer. Like, how could you focus on a certain set of suspects from the beginning, yet never come up with enough evidence to bring them into a courtroom? And I know that the original prosecutor had gone after him, looked like things were moving in that direction, but it didn't end up that way. Didn't end up that way. Now, I remember at court, when I was at Court TV, early on in my career at Court TV, there was a huge moment when John Mark Carr, who was this guy, this bizarre man, made this confession, and everyone thought, this is it. This is it. Brought him back from overseas. I think he was in Thailand. He had confessed to all of this, was brought into court. At the time, it was the biggest moment in the history of Court TV, the first time that he was brought into a courtroom here in the United States. And it turned out that that was a false confession. You know, they looked at him, they looked at where he was, what he knew, everything, and the pieces just didn't fit. Trust me, they wanted the pieces to fit, but they didn't. And in high-profile cases, you will get false confessions. It's par for the course. It happens. That's why investigators always hold back some information that presumably only the killer would know. So when they get all these confessions, they can somehow corroborate or verify that, oh yeah, you know, he or she knew something that nobody else knew in this case. That wasn't the case with John Mark Carr. So now we're dealing with this other confession. I know it's been making the rounds for a while, but it's a guy named Oliva. All right? He likes pictures of little kids, okay? child pornography. We know that for a fact, okay? So that gets him into the, into the sphere of people who could potentially be responsible for all this. Now, he's written a series of letters, including ones where he has admitted taking the life of JonBenét Ramsey. He's in custody right now. But he sent these letters, and the question is this for real? Is this a real confession, or the deranged mind of a man making a false confession, like John Mark Carr did years ago? And that's what we're going to look at tonight on this show. That's what we're going to look at, and get the backstory, and get some facts, and try to put the pieces together here. So let's begin with the letter. He wrote a letter to a friend of his, a friend, acquaintance, former classmate. His name is Michael Vail. And in that letter he wrote, "I never loved anyone like I did JonBenét, and yet I let her slip and her head bashed in half, and I watched her die. It was an accident." Okay? That's one of many letters that Gary Oliva has written through the years, to Michael Vail. So I want to get the backstory on this man, Gary Oliva, and the friend, classmate he was writing to. What's the story behind the letter, behind this confession? And so joining me tonight, folks, from Ventura, California, the man who received those letters from Gary Oliva, his former classmate, Michael Vail. Michael, I just didn't know how to describe it. I didn't want to say friend, but like he's sending you letters, and I know classmate, acquaintance. How would you describe your relationship now and years ago with this man, Gary Oliva?
Well, really, there's three parts to that story. The first part would be pre-96. The second part, then there would be 96, and then anything after 2016. But in the beginning, I went to a very small high school, and everybody knew everybody there. And Gary was what we called an orbiter. He just would orbit around our groups and stuff. So we were classmates. We knew everybody at school. There's probably 75 to 100 kids there at any given time. It was a rather small school.
Okay, so you describe him as an orbiter. Was he always a little different? Was there always, did you and your classmates sense that, one of these, classmates is not like the other?
Well, we didn't really, we were just kids. We didn't really know about that stuff. I didn't have any idea. We have a naivety, at the time, being just young kids. But of course, we knew there was something wrong with Gary. In fact, we called him Scary Gary. He was known for breaking into places and getting art supplies. I mean, he could break in and steal things, but he was definitely into stealing art supplies and things of that nature. When I heard about the paintbrush, things like that. There's so many points that I have here. I have 25 points of what I would call circumstantial evidence.
Okay, let's get to that in just a minute. I just want to focus on how we got to these letters. So let's start with, when does he start writing to you, and what is the sort of the nature of the communication, and is it a back and forth, or is it a sort of a one-way street here?
Well, right after high school, I went off, got married, went to college, all that good stuff, and Gary stayed in touch with the mail, the U.S. mail, believe it or not. Back then, that's how we stayed in touch. So I was taking a TV and radio course, and I had access to this fantastic studio. So I was making these funny cassette tapes with all their sound effects and stuff. And I popped, Gary was one of the guys I popped on one of these cassette tapes. Well, he loved it. He mailed me back a cassette tape. And this went on for years, I'm going to say 16 years, getting cassette tapes and things from him and really not talking by telephone, which made that phone call in 96, very more scary.
Okay. So let's get to the phone call in 1996. This is when you say everything changes. And we know this is when JonBenét is murdered. So what was this phone call like? When was it? And what was said?
It was December 26th. It was almost midnight on the 27th. It would have been the morning of the 27th. Well, all of a sudden, it was the happiest time of my life. It really was. I just bought a house. I married my high school sweetheart, ironically, right? And then, yeah, things were going so great. And so my family went to sleep, and I remember it. You remember a phone call you get that's terrifying. You remember it. You remember the room you're in when you get that phone call. And I remember with the Christmas tree and everything. It was December 26th, and it was about midnight. And I get that phone call, and it's Gary's voice, and he's like, oh, I just heard, oh, little girl, oh. Like, it was the most terrifying. I'm getting goosebumps just now telling you guys this because it was terrifying. And I immediately jumped into protective mode. Oh, where are you? What's your address? What's your phone number? And he kind of caught on to me, but he told me he was in Boulder. When I was like, Boulder? Why would you be in Boulder? You've been sending me mail for 16 years from Oregon. And now you're suddenly in Boulder calling me. Anyway, he hung the phone up when I'm trying to get information, and that was the phone call. Well, here's the scariest part. The next morning, I get to the LA Times on the newspaper on my front porch. It's 6, 7 in the morning. I flip the newspaper open, and there it is on the back side. It says, girl 6 slain in Boulder, Colorado. And I knew something serious had happened that night. I knew something serious had happened. I go, wow, he actually killed a girl. And that's when I called that number. Right then and there, I called that phone number. And I sat back, and, when you call the police, they're going to do something, right? I mean, that's their job. They investigate tips, right? And here's my solid gold tip. But I sit back, I'm telling my wife, any day they're going to arrest Gary, watch this, it's going to be incredible. And then all of a sudden, like every day would go by, and there's no phone call. I mean, the police never followed up. So after 3 months, I called them a second time. And I said, look, I need to tell you, I've got a really good lead for the John. Now I knew her name was JonBenét. And I said, I've got a lead for the JonBenét murder. And they said, okay, let me put you through to the JonBenét line, quote unquote, the crazy person line, right? Because by now, thousands of people had called, who knows, my tip got buried in there. Who knows what happened? I'm still thinking Gary's going to be arrested any day. You talked about John Mark Carr earlier. And let me tell you something. I knew when John Mark Carr got arrested, I knew that I was like, what is this? I mean, I know Gary did this. I know who killed JonBenét.
So never any response from police. You make the initial call, you make the second call. Did they ever get back to you?
No, the Boulder police never contacted me until the TV show 48 Hours and Lou Smith followed up. And actually, Alex Hunter, the district attorney for Boulder, Colorado at the time, drove out to my apartment in Ventura. And I gave him evidence of some of those scary things that Gary had mailed me over the years. We're talking handwriting samples. We're talking hair from missing kids posters, really scary stuff that he had started sending me. What I forgot to tell you is that over the 16 years, the things he had sent me got darker and darker until it was like including tape recordings where he's simulating a rape of a child and really horrible things like that. So, yeah, it was getting pretty scary. And then 96 happened, and I knew that he had done something very serious.
So when do you get a letter where because over the phone, I would consider that a confession too, right? I hurt this girl, he says he's in Boulder, right? So that's one part. When do you start getting letters or the letter where he purports to confess to the murder itself?
Right. It's an interesting story because in May of 2016, I had enough. I had found Gary's Pinterest page. It was basically a trophy page to JonBenét. There was 65 photos of JonBenét in there. And I just went livid. So I thought, what can I do to help this case along? What can I do? And here it was 2016. So I wrote I have a friend who's an FBI agent, sent her a 3-page email. She said, don't worry, I'll take care of it. within a month, Gary was arrested, and he's got a undetermined sentence. And
So
he's still in prison.
and still in prison now. I mean, the guy clearly has issues and has problems. And the question is he the one responsible for all of this? So you get the letter from him. What do you do with the letters once he starts confessing to you through these letters?
No, the way that happened is that within a month he was arrested, and I was like, oh wow, it was like a backpack full of rocks. It was like relief. I finally was free from worrying about Gary loose in society. It was the best feeling in the world, and I thought that was enough. That's what I needed, right? And then, but what happened was somebody said, hey, why don't you write Gary a letter and ask him what he did that night, or tell me. And I said, that's a brilliant idea. So I started sending Gary's letters. To my surprise, he started sending them back. And I tried everything to try to get him to talk about his life and just about everything, about how this got to this point, you know, and about JonBenét and his obsession with JonBenét. We talked about every detail. And then, what happened is I couldn't get enough details from the letters, so I had him start to call me on the telephone. And I'm recording those calls.
Now, Michael, I understand that you just got another letter today.
Oh, yeah.
From Gary Oliva?
Yeah, matter of fact, I do have a letter still sealed right here. It's dated July 31st.
Do you mind opening it and tell us what Gary has to say tonight?
I sure do. I sure do. And I got to tell you, we've got some amazing details coming up. We have a new private investigator that's working with us, and it's really helping this case along. I'm very excited. Okay, so I'm opening this, as you can see. I'm sorry, I should have done that on the... Okay, this is a very, very detailed letter. I haven't reviewed this, but as you can see, let me just approve this, make sure it's okay. It says generosity brings psychological benefits. It's some clipping from it's interesting, you know, the things that he sent me. And now he's kind of changed his handwriting even more, and he writes very small. And, you know, I'll spare you guys. I won't read this to you, but it's been quite a journey for 27 years trying to keep
just
this
give us
guy
a small
out.
flavor of what he wrote, if you could read a couple lines from it.
In the garden, there are patches where others have dumped things of little value that need clearing out and tilled ready for planting, that are patches where no matter one tries to grow, a surface then dies. It never takes hold, needs the right nutrients. That's where the patches are. That things never get planted at the right time. So you must keep replanting. So it's just bizarre.
Bizarre stuff. But, I mean, this case is still unsolved. There's a purported confession here. Now, this is what I want to do, Michael. I want you to stand by, because what we're doing here tonight is taking some of the letters that you've provided, and there's the original ransom note in the JonBenét case, which everyone believes the killer wrote, right? So we're going to compare the handwriting from the letters. Got some experts coming on in the next segment. We'll take a look at that. And then I know you have that list, okay? I'm going to get to the lists. Before we finish here this hour, we're going to get to your list as well. So Michael Vail, former classmate of Gary Oliva, staying with us. We're going to compare those letters. We've got a lot to get to, plus coming up next hour.
In Nassau, in the Bahamas, a love triangle and divorce turned into an alleged murder-for-hire plot. Lindsay Shiver is accused of cheating on her husband, then soliciting a third man with her lover to kill her husband, Robert. We are live in the Bahamas with the latest.
Lindsay, you want to say anything about the allegations? Any message to Robert or the boys?
You hire a hitman. You tried to hire a hitman to kill your husband, Robert.
A man married 6 times. 4 of his wives died under mysterious circumstances.
eccentric widower Thomas Randolph.
Charged with the murders of his wife and the man he allegedly paid to kill her.
A 2017 conviction overturned.
The plan between Mr. Miller and Mr. Randolph was to kill Sharon.
Now he faces a jury once again.
The Widower Murder Trial. Live coverage weekday mornings at 8, 7 Central on Court TV.
The note was lying across the run of one of the stair treads, and it was kind of dimly lit because it was very early in the morning. And I started to read it, and it was addressed to John.
A terrifying message scrawled across 3 pages.
It said, "We have your daughter."
A lot of things didn't make sense. Why would they leave a ransom note with her body still in the house?
My first impression was that this guy wrote the Magna Carta.
You will withdraw $118,000 from your account.
If I were kidnapping this guy's daughter, I'd ask for $250,000, $500,000, $1 million. So the amount of money is just really odd to me.
This ransom note from the beginning has been baffling, but I think most people agree it's connected to the killer. And probably, I mean, if it's not the killer, then who would have written this, right? Like, why would you write that note? But it wasn't even a kidnapping, it was a murder. She was still in the house. So take a look at the ransom note. This is, one of the most significant pieces of evidence in the case, and yet they haven't been able to connect anyone to it. So we've got Gary Oliva confessing in a letter and writing tons of letters to Michael Vail. So what we want to do is compare Gary Oliva's letter to the ransom note to say, hey, are there consistencies here? Does it look like the same person could have or did write these 2 letters? So let's bring in our guest, still with us, Gary Oliva's former classmate, Michael Vail. Also joining us tonight, helping us a lot with all this in Salt Lake City, private investigator and great friend of the show, Jason Jensen. And helping us analyze these documents, forensic handwriting experts Moselle Martin and Dawn McCarty. Great to have everyone here. Thank you so much. And I got to let everyone know, Jason Jensen is putting all this together and helping us so much. Appreciate Jason. But I'm going to go right to the experts, if you don't mind, who you helped put all this together. So I want to take a look at sort of like a layover kind of comparison that Moselle did. We have something we could put on the screen here, which compares the TH, the IF, the U, and some of the words here. Moselle, why don't you begin to explain this and what it tells you?
Well, for me, it's really about the nuances, the little things that are not common. It's important to look at the common similarities as well, but it's also important to look at the uncommon things. For example, a lot of the people who are at home armchair sleuths, they will look at it and say, oh, well, it doesn't visually look the same. But if you can, everybody kind of learned the same way in school to a certain extent, and so there's going to be some commonalities. So when you overlay them, though, some of these weird little strokes that are awkward, that are not common, like a little bend in the T stem or an arch in the H, those are unique to that individual. So when you overlay them, they line up so well. That's a really loud announcement in my profession.
Okay, Dawn, let's start going through some of the letters now. Let's start. This is like going back to school with the letter A and the comparison of the A. So what did you find in this comparison of the letter A? I think we're going to put it up on the screen. Do we have it? Here we go. All right. Tell us what we're looking at.
Sure. So when you look at these, you might think at first, oh, these don't look the same. One starts and one's, on a upward slant to curve over. However, if you lay these 2 over, if you take the blue A and you lay it over the black A, it almost lines up in that arch that bends around. You can see how they line up a little bit. And then there's also an indentation on that right-hand side, which I think is on another slide later, that you can see in the same location on both sides, both documents. Those nuances or the anomalies exist. And that's what we're really looking for is it's easy to spot things that are similar, but what we're really looking for is those things that aren't really obvious, but we can still find. So that's why we really dig in and take our time with these analysis and dig up a little bit more or dig through them a little bit more so we can find those similarities and the dissimilarities, because we want to have a broad analysis. We want to know what's different. And then we also want to know, okay, so how many traits are similar so that we can stack those traits? Because like Moselle said, some of us are going to have very similar writing because we learned in schools that taught us how to write the same letters. So that aside, as we grow, we start creating or start developing our own style, and our own personality comes out into our writing, where you can see someone else's handwriting and recognize, okay, yeah, that's my mom's handwriting. So that's what we're looking for beyond that. What else is in that writing that is unique to both documents?
So let's go through some more letters. Go through the letter C now. Let's take a look. Moselle, what are your thoughts about the C's?
Well, it's very interesting because the C's and the E's, if you just looked at those letters of Gary's, a lot of them resemble an E. But we have to look at, we have two different writing instruments. We have a Sharpie and we have an ink pen. So when you're comparing them, you're automatically going to have some residual stroking of the Sharpie, because it does automatically bleed into the paper weave a lot differently than the ink would sit on it. However, you can still see when you overlay them the same strokes, the angles, the hooks, the exits, they are still there, even though we have different writing instruments.
Let's go to the D's. Dawn, that's your first letter of your name. What do you think of the D's?
So what's significant about these D's, if you look how they're both written on each side, they start at the top. And now at the top on the question document, you see that black dot. That's because it's a Sharpie pen, and that ink is flowing as soon as it makes contact with the paper. So both these D's start at the top and they go all the way around and form that circle without stopping. There's no straight stem going down and then up and creating the loop. The stem goes down and it continues on and wraps around to form that D on the top one. On the bottom one, you can see how both of these traits are like a little triangle in that loop. So it's not a pure circle. Both, again, exist in both documents.
Moselle, we have here two L's together. Let's take a look at that and tell me what you think.
The L's, I was so excited when I saw the L's because it just has so much difference in the visual aspect of it. But when we overlay them, I was so excited. I yelled at my husband and I said, you have to see these L's, and he doesn't know anything about handwriting. But when you overlay them, there is just no denying that they are made with the same stroke. It has the same, the same bend in the stems. It has the same spacing between the stems that also line up. So they are very distinct.
Dawn, take a look at the M's now. Let's go to the M's.
So when you look at these M's, you're going to say that they don't look alike. That these ones are shorter in the middle, where you have the peaks and the valleys. But when you overlay them, you can still see that the spacing is the same, and that's what we look for also. So it's not just about is the points exactly the same. There's not going to be an exact match on every letter, especially when you're looking at disguised writing, which obviously the ransom note is disguised writing. So it's not going to look exactly the same. However, when you lay these over, you can see how they do line up as far as the spacing goes.
All right, Moselle, this is interesting. The O's and the O's. And I don't know if that's the O's and the O's or the O's and the zeros. The O's and the zeros. Let's take a look here. What are you seeing here?
So for me, one of the big things I always look for when I'm analyzing a question document is I am looking for entrance and exit strokes. Where do they start? Where do they end? How do they meet and connect? And after they complete, what shape are they? So when we overlay these, it's just, again, again, it's just, how do you deny this?
It's unbelievable. And finally, Dawn, we've got some numbers and symbols here we're going to take a look at as well, which I guess are a little more unique. What's significant here?
So at first glance, you're going to look at the 1997 and you're going to see some wobbliness and some heavier ink at the bottom, the base of the 9, but you have to remember that that is written with a Sharpie pen. So you're going to see more of that than you may have if it was written with a ballpoint pen. So when you look at the 9s on the right and you lay those over the 9s in the middle, sort of, and I think we do have an overlay on this one. I'm not sure if it's going to play, but those 9s line up. They're just a little bit shorter. And then the double 9s also line up. So that the .99 on the right side of the known sample is actually the 99-cents piece of the 1999. And it still lines up in over these other 99s. To where they're centered and still within the same spacing, more or less. And then the 7, of course, that top bar across the top is nearly the same length. And then both of them come down almost straight before the blue 7 bends a little bit and before the 7 gets a little wobbly. But you can still, when those are overlaid, they're pretty similar.
Okay, so let's get to the bottom line here now. So, Moselle, I'll begin with you. I'm not familiar. What's the standard when you compare? Is it like more likely than not inconsistent with, or what's your conclusion?
So for me, I use a 5-point scale, which basically 5 would say absolutely there's no way possible this person could have written this. In my opinion, again, this is just my opinion. So for this, I would be at about a 1.75. I would love to have seen more handwriting, but we can only work with what we have access to. But based on everything that I looked for and looked at, I had dozens and dozens of samples of Gary's. I started at 250, went up to 225, then was at a 2, and then ended at 175.
So what does 175 mean again?
Means pretty close to certain, but you can never say 100%.
Right. So it's very close. Okay. So Dawn,
very close.
What was your conclusion?
So I started out more at a 3-4 in the very beginning because I didn't do the deep dive. I was still just did a peer review. And the more I started digging into it, the more I started doing the overlays, I could see more significance in the similarities. And it's a compelling argument that there's a lot of anomalies in here. And so I did manage to get down to, and I was on a 2 for a little while, but those O's and some of the numbers, the A's that have a little indentation that exists in both documents, they were a little convincing. So I'm between a 1.75 and a 2. So in my opinion, it's plausible.
Wow. Fascinating stuff. I appreciate you coming on and sharing that with us. Pretty amazing. So I thank you, Moselle Martin and Dawn McCarty. Jason Jensen's going to stay with us. Can't wait to hear what he has to say about all of this. And of course, Mike Vail, I know you've got your list. I want to hear that list. We've got all that coming up. Don't go anywhere, folks. Wow.
A man married 6 times.
4 of his wives died under mysterious circumstances.
Eccentric widower Thomas Randolph.
Charged with the murders of his wife and the man he allegedly paid to kill her.
A 2017 conviction overturned.
The plan between Mr. Miller and Mr. Randolph was to kill Sharon.
Now he faces a jury once again.
The Widower Murder Trial. Live coverage weekday mornings at 8, 7 Central on Court TV.
Well, I'm quite familiar with him. You used the term this person should have been at the top of the radar for the police. Unfortunately, we were at the top of the radar, and they ignored people like this in the beginning. Oliva was referred to us by the Boulder District Attorney for follow-up by our detectives because I think he felt the police would not follow it up properly. And when I heard the circumstantial evidence around this guy, I said to our attorneys, this is the guy. And they said, whoa, don't do a Boulder police on us yet. We don't know that yet. We got a lot of digging to do. So we knew about him early on, and he was certainly right up at the top of the list of possible suspects.
That was John Ramsey. The last time we talked about this, and he said, Gary Oliva was on the top of our list, but the Boulder police were focused on the Ramseys. Like, that's part of the history of this case. Here's what the Boulder police told us today. Because this is an active and ongoing investigation, I'm unable to answer any specific questions about this crime. That's a 27-year active investigation without a ton of activity. But there were prior statements, like in 2019, the Boulder Police Department said they were aware of Gary Oliva and has investigated his potential involvement in the case, including several previous confessions. The department routinely receives information on investigation. Information provided to the police department is reviewed along with the many tips and theories we receive. Right? So they know about him, but what's going on here? Let's bring back in our guests, Michael Vail, Jason Jensen, still with me. Jason, let me start with you. What are your thoughts tonight, right? You put all this together, handwriting experts, and it seems like they're pretty confident that this is consistent, that it could, in fact, be the same person.
Right. Thanks, Vinny, for having us tonight. I mean, I know that Court TV has been covering this story for many, many years, and so we were excited to share the results of our one-year independent investigation thus far. So, yeah, when we learned of the similarities of Gary's handwriting, we thought this was significant in light of the fact that, you know, the handwriting of Patsy Ramsey was really instrumental in building their case against the Ramseys initially. So even though that the scaling was 4.5 or 5, which was a complete elimination or mostly eliminating for both of them, they still emphasized the Ramseys as being key to, you know, discovering what happened to JonBenét that night. But with such a low score in favor of Gary, we think we're onto something. And the only thing that they've ever said was in response to the 48 Hours Investigates episode was that DNA eliminated Gary at, you know, in 2002. But what we know back then, their sole emphasis was the Ramseys. So we questioned in our investigation whether that was a sincere elimination of Gary by DNA.
All right, Michael, let me, and by the way, in these big cases, you know, I think you have to take law enforcement with a grain of salt. We learned that in the Delphi murders. The suspect who gets arrested, overlooked. They knew about him right from the beginning. The Long Island serial killer, should have been an arrest within months in that case, but police were doing whatever they were doing there. So, you know, you got to take it with a grain of salt. So, Michael, I know you are involved in all this, and what's your list? Everyone that's watching is like, Vinny, will you let him give us the list? So what's your list that you have for us tonight?
Well, you know, number one is the direct evidence. You know, I've always known who killed JonBenét, and the fact is that phone call. That phone call, and my fact that I called the police the next morning, there's a record of that, and this is a documented direct evidence. Now, that right there, to me, here's how I feel. Everybody's saying there's a mystery about who killed JonBenét. But to me, that's not the mystery. The mystery is why Gary hasn't been arrested for this. Okay, let me go on to the circumstantial evidence for you. And thank you for a great program, by the way. Gary had the means, the access, the history, and the criminal history. Boy, he was on the run for... it's hard to say, you know, what he was doing to a little girl in Oregon. He was on the run from the law for that when JonBenét was killed in '96. Anyway, he had a fascination with knots in high school, with cords, knots. It's in his collages. It's in his artwork. Then also he attempted to strangle his own mother with a telephone cord. Tried to kill his own mother and told her, hey, I should have killed you years before. And then... of course, we know how JonBenét was killed, unfortunately, with a cord. It's really tough to talk about. The proximity of Gary is what's really alarming here. We're not talking about somebody across town. We're talking about somebody right down the alley. Unlucky 13 houses. Very unlucky 13 houses down that same alley. And then when you look on Google Satellite, you can see how those trees cover that alley, and anybody can sneak through there unknown, undetected. Anyway, boy, that gives me goosebumps right now. 13 houses away. He was getting his mail there in a church, 13 houses down. I could get into that, but we only have another half hour. We have he has an obsession with JonBenét. Well, hey, we all know that. You've seen the drawings, right? We know. I'm going to skip number 6. We'll get to that later. But number 7, he was a creeper in school, in high school. Also breaking into Caltech Pasadena, breaking into UC Boulder. He was actually arrested on the campus with a poem to JonBenét and photographs and artwork of JonBenét.
Michael, let me do this, Michael. Just stay where you are. We're going to take a short break, and then we'll finish up on the other side. We had something else we were going to do. We're not going to do it. We're going to stay on this. Jason Jensen, Michael Vail, staying with us. We'll be right back. Plus, coming up next hour.
In Las Vegas, Nevada, the widower Thomas Randolph is accused of hiring a hitman to murder his wife. He's also accused of then murdering the hitman. Randolph has been married 6 times, and 4 of his wives are dead. Will the jury find out? We have the latest from court.
Did you understand that by signing this document, you are agreeing that if you are convicted of first-degree murder in this case, I will choose the punishment and it will not be put to this jury? Yes, ma'am.
These are the cases that captivated the world.
Couldn't keep my life straight.
That demanded our attention.
They were killed by their own children.
That challenged the legal system and ourselves.
How in the world can a mother wait 30 days before reporting her child missing?
These are the trials that became legendary. And now you can relive them all in one place. Court TV Legendary Trials. Go to courttv.com/legendary trials to find out how to watch.
Welcome back. I want to preserve as much time for our guests. We're talking about the murder of JonBenét Ramsey. Michael Vail's with us. Jason Jensen's with us. Michael Vail, former classmate of Gary Oliva, got all these letters. Michael, when we went to break, you were going through your list of circumstantial evidence that you have come up with that would implicate Gary Oliva. Let me just ask you, did police ever ask for your phone records, or did they ever get your phone records to verify that you got that call from Oliva?
No.
No, of course not. Why would you do that?
That was through a landline.
Yeah, exactly. So go ahead, continue with your list and try to, we have 2 minutes exactly, so see if you can save like 20 seconds for Jason Jensen at the end.
Yeah, thank you to Jason Jensen. He's been doing a fantastic job, and he talked about DNA, and that's on my list. You have to look into the science of DNA in 1996. I mean, it could have been anybody that touched her. It could have been somebody at the mortuary who actually touched her when they actually ran the touch DNA. So we have to look at this. What I've been told since the very beginning of this case, the DNA has been compromised. We all know that. That's a fact. Now, real quick, he broke into schools for art supplies, and she was killed with a paintbrush from Patsy art room. Now, he slept in the campus of Boulder. He signed the ransom note is signed SBTC. Well, they had a breakthrough with single band truncated crystal that year, University of Boulder. Amazing. Jason did an amazing job putting that together. He called me 6 hours before it was in the news. Come on. We was on the run for molesting a girl in Oregon. He had mailed me missing girl posters. It was very terrifying to get that. He had a fascination with 6-year-old kids. I don't know why he locked into 6-year-old kids, but the eyeballs on forks. Now we take the little spin. He's a cannibal. I guess if you eat human skin of a child, I guess that would make you a cannibal. So he's confessed to me on a prison interview phone call that he tasted children's skin He wanted to eat JonBenét, also something he told me. Anyway, I could go on this list, but we only had 2 minutes.
Yeah, exactly, and I appreciate it. Jason Jensen, so what happens next? Where do we go from here?
Well, at this point, you know, I've certainly updated John Ramsey, and I've also offered our evidence to Boulder PD, and I'm still waiting to hear them back.
All right, I wouldn't hold my breath on that one. For many reasons, I don't understand how this whole thing, you know, why it hasn't been widened. You don't bring in the FBI, everybody else, all boots on the ground. Didn't happen in this case. Michael Vail, thank you for your time tonight. Thank you for sharing everything. Jason Jensen, amazing as always. We really do appreciate it.